Irish Nation, we're back at it. Another episode of the Irish Football Pod. Been a little bit, but we're happy to jump back in here. Connor, how's it going, dude? What's going on?
Doing good, man. Long time no see. We've been busy just with stuff going on in our lives, and just haven't been able to hop on for a minute. So it's good to be back.
Yep, and that doesn't mean we haven't been following what's going on. We got spring practice in full force. Spring game is under 20 days away. So we're right in the thick of spring. Like the boys are grinding. Team continuity is building. Quarterbacks are battling. We got a lot to talk about. Yeah, let's just start with first impressions of the spring, man. Like what's standing out to you?
The first thing that I've taken in from seeing clips of the first couple of practices is the energy. This team's coming with energy. And it doesn't seem like they've skipped much. They haven't missed much of a heartbeat. In the past couple weeks to get their feet under them and to get those first couple of practices out of the way. It's not easy after a long break, obviously, but what I've seen is the team rally and just bring a lot of energy, which is good to see from the young guys all the way to the top.
Yeah, and you've got to think too, the run that these guys went on, obviously brutal, longest season in college football history, Notre Dame history for sure. The most games we played before is 13. But there might have been a slowdown period right after the title game in terms of like, dang, I just need to decompress a little bit, get my body back in, to health. But yeah, the guys are flying around. It seems like there is like a very specific attention to detail that the whole program that's just the cylinder that they're clicking on now. Like the standard is set, it's been set. We got to a title game, and the work to get to the title starts in January. Yeah. Like the work starts in January, February, March, April. That's when the title runs typically begin, right? That's when a lot of the work gets put in. So you can see it. Like these guys they're focused, they're locked in. The guys are flying around. It's good to see.
Yeah, it's cool to see throughout, the top tier players, the ones and twos, but you're seeing a lot of young guys too be pretty prominent in the first couple of practices. You had guys like Jadon Blair and Madden Ferriemo on campus early on. Those guys were doing practices leading up to college football playoff games. And that experience, you can see, has carried over going into their first spring practice. There's already people pointing out their abilities early on. It goes back to like KVA. We heard so much good about him, a lot of great things. And if you watched this film, you knew he was going to be a contributor to the team early on, and he was. He showed that throughout last season. Dinged up by injury, but he came back after it and was able to play in the playoffs too. So
yeah,
you're just seeing the young talent that Freeman is acquiring and them making a big impact early, instead of it being 2 or 3 years later on, where you're eventually seeing them on, being a prominent player, right?
Yeah,
we're seeing it early on.
Yeah, there's a history of it too. Christian Gray, Leonard Moore, KVA, who's the defensive end?
Osbury in his fourth year.
Osbury, Bryce Young. Dude, these kids are coming in. They're impact players from the beginning. And what have we always said? Georgia's, the Bamas, the Clemsons, the Ohio States. They have elite playmaking players that are freshmen and sophomore. Like we are seeing that now with the Irish. That is becoming like a normal thing, which tells me and shows me, dude, the program's in a healthy spot. We got young guys contributing mixed with the veteran guys we have. I mean, dude, it's going to be exciting.
Changing.
Yeah.
It's obviously changing. And if you can't see it, then I don't know what you're watching.
the skill position players too, and I'm not reading too much into the clips and the highlights, but running backs and wide receivers, it seems like we got some weapons. Running back room for sure, but dude, the receiving core, they got a lot to prove, but I think that there's a lot of potential there that if we tap into it even just a little bit, man, like
Hmm.
we could have a good attack in the passing game.
Yep. Yep. No, for sure. I heard some things today about Micah Gilbert. I haven't like heard anything, whether it's injury or sickness or anything, but he just wasn't at practice today, so I don't know if he's sick or just went back home, or I'm not sure of the situation, but it
Shoot.
led to Cam Williams getting more reps in today's practice. So, and I heard he
Okay.
was a lot more on point. Um, Recent things that I've heard is his first year was a big learning curve, just because his high school, it was a good competition area wise, or it was a good area for competition, but his high school specifically didn't go too much in depth with like the playbook and stuff. So there was a pretty big learning curve for him and himself, because every player is different. Every high school is different. Um, but I've heard he's made a big jump forward, and that's good to hear.
Yeah, and that's we knew that last year too. Like there was going to be an adjustment for him. So just the kid is an athlete. Like just get him on the field and let him run a slant, let him run a post, let him run a fly. Like don't overcomplicate it. Of course, there's more scheme and more to it than that, but get the kid some reps. Like let him do what he's put on that field to do. Right?
Hmm.
Just
Yep.
he can contribute, and I think that they're gonna find some ways to get him the ball. But
Hmm.
yeah, I mean, we've got Great House, Malachi Fields, Will Pauling, the two transfers, Faison, Saldate, KK Smith, Micah Gilbert.
You mentioned Malachi Fields.
Yeah, Malachi Fields. I mean, dude, whoever is throwing the ball is gonna have people to get to throw to. Like the whole
Yeah.
core has to prove themselves, but whoever is taking snaps, they're gonna have receivers to throw the ball to. And
Yeah.
I think if we want to get over the hump and really be a multi-dimensional offense and a threat basically at any time, we got to get that going. Like hopefully this is the year when we finally see it. So we'll see, man. I hopefully we see it though.
Yeah. What's encouraging too is if you look at recent history with Mike Denbrock, he's had a pretty big jump in year two from year one in pretty much every offense he's been in. Specifically LSU, he even did that at Cincinnati when he was there. You can go look at the numbers, but he had a pretty big jump in almost every category statistically from year one to year two, and that was with losing and gaining players at the same time. It's that's one reason why we love college football, and a lot of people do, because every year is so different, right?
Yeah.
Well, having top tier coaches allows you to do what he's done. You have to be good enough to produce a better product, whether you're losing or getting players at certain positions, right? But you had Jaden Daniels and Malik Neighbors. Those are guys that you can count on pretty much week in and week out. But
That's a good
the
point too.
talent,
And it's a
I was
good
just gonna say,
point.
back to
Like,
the talent that you talked about. It's he's got a lot of talent to work with. So
yeah, and I just think it's a good valid point in terms of, last year Denbrock was just, implementing his fingerprints onto things. He got there after Riley had committed. Okay. Now he's got a full spring, full summer, full fall to really hone in on, okay, this is the guy that I think needs to be running my offense. He's the guy that's playing the best. I think that those two things are going to pay dividends for us. It's hopefully we see more continuity in the offense and more dynamic plays. Not that we weren't dynamic last year, but we're not going to be able to just rely on quarterback run. It's going to be the running backs and it's going to be the receivers making plays. So, Denbrock, dude, he's gonna cook. He's gonna cook.
Well,
Let
it
them.
comes back to the quarterback, which we've already talked about. It's been a minute since we have. I think the last episode we really dove into who we want to be the starter. And I think you've told me since we've talked offline is that you think it's going to be, Minchie. That's what you told me the other day. So that's after the first couple of practices that we've seen clips of. So it's like we were bought into Carr, but then we hear Gino say that Kenny's the most athletic and most dual threat QB we have. That's the most
And
similar to Riley. So it just makes
yeah,
the QB topic really interesting. Then again,
and
when is it not?
nothing against Steve, but I feel like if you go with Steve, you're kind of in that 1 year rental period again, but with a guy that's in house. Opposed to if we go with Kenny or CJ, it's like, okay, the young guy won the job. If he comes in and crushes it, this is his for a couple years. If he wants it, if he stays. If you go with Steve and Steve wins the job, it's like, well, next year we're going to be in the same spot again. Where like if one of these younger guys grabs it, I think it's theirs for a couple years if they play well, right? If they produce on the field. But
Mhm.
so
Yeah, it's made it very interesting and compelling the past couple weeks. Again, in the first couple of practices, because you are hearing reports that every guy is coming to practice like they're number one. So it's like a lot of growth, obviously, from Kenny and CJ to prepare that way, and then show up to practice that way with that mindset, right? So that's making it ultra competitive, but at the same time, those guys are a lot closer than people know too. So it's
yeah,
healthy. This is this is what Notre Dame's been asking for a while now. It's a healthy quarterback competition where you can rely on most of the guys to go in there and win games. And we got
right.
Miami on the road week one, so whoever it is, we're gonna need to to be that guy.
Yeah, I just can't even imagine watching this guys run out of that tunnel week one. It's gonna be, dude, it's gonna be insane. And then for whoever's taking that snap, if it's not, I think Steve will be comfortable if he's thrown into that. I mean, come on, we threw him into the Orange Bowl to lead a, you know, drive at the end of the second quarter to get points and try to make it to the title. He came in there and did it. He won't be scared at Miami. Okay. But if it's Kenny or CJ, they get the nod, there's just no doubt there's gonna be some flutters going on in that belly, you know.
I actually went back and watched the full game replay of the Orange Bowl today,
Mhm.
and Steve's first play was a slant to face on. He
Yeah,
came in
dart.
on his first play, he threw a pass.
Dart.
With how good our running back room is, the coaches trusted him to throw a slant. So
That says a lot too, dude. And nobody's really giving Steve a chance, but he might just win this thing with moxie, accuracy, moving the ball. Like, who knows? Maybe he makes less mistakes than the other guys do in practice, and he's going to take care of the ball better. There's a lot of ways that Steve can win this job. So I think it would be naive of anybody to just count him out, right? But I think a
yeah,
vast majority of the fan base would like to see a younger guy take the reins.
yeah. For me, if Steve ends up winning it and he's the starter at Miami, if his athleticism shows that it's not, as good as CJ's or Kenny's, he'll get pulled by halftime. The coaching staff is too smart to not let that game. It's our first game of the year. We can't lose it, right? We're independent. This is what we talk about. You have to win every game, pretty much. Um, we've proved last year we could lose one really terrible game and still make the championship. But
Yeah.
back to what I was saying, if there are plays that prove that Steve's athleticism isn't to where we need it to be, the coaches I think will make that change if that's what the situation is. Um,
Yeah, if he's
but
just getting
I
bull rushed
don't.
in the pocket and he can't escape, I mean, I could see him going to Kenny or CJ.
Yeah.
What's going to be interesting is what happens after spring's done, and maybe there's not a depth chart that's released. There won't be, but you
Hmm.
know that the guys will have some sense of where they're at on that chart. So does somebody does somebody dip out? I don't know. Maybe
Right.
somebody dips out and leaves. I don't know.
Yeah. I just don't see that happening either. I just think they're all too close. They all love Notre Dame for their own individual reasons. I think they all want to win at Notre Dame. I don't think they're really looking at numbers specifically,
Yeah.
which is again comes back to being a healthy QB room. There's not much toxicity, which we've seen before with multiple high caliber QBs in the room, and then certain decisions that the staff made to start one over another led
Mhm.
to certain things with recent regimes, right? Yeah, I mean, those are stories for another day, but you know what I mean. But again, it comes back to the talent that you've talked about. This team has all these quarterbacks that we're talking about have an abundance of talent around them, right? Like they really have good talent. So whether they're handing it off, whether they're throwing it to tight ends or wide receivers,
Yep.
it's our offense is going to be hard to stop. And I think
Right.
specifically because these QBs are more pass oriented. Riley, we trusted his legs. He could make the throws. He started to prove it, but it wasn't as consistent as we need, to be dominant.
Mhm. Mhm.
But yeah, I mean, we can kind of jump over to a recruiting update too. Um, I've personally heard a lot of good things over the Pot of Gold Day. There's a lot of crystal balls out there right now for some really top talent in the country, top 100 kids. And yeah, couple names off the rip or Joey O'Brien. That's a replica of a Kyle Hamilton. He's 6'4", 190 pounds. He's a ball hawk. Javion Osborne from Texas, running back. He's close to a 5-star. I've heard he was all smiles. He was on the campus for 3 days and he didn't stop smiling. Um, Dunham, Rodney Dunham. He's a 5-star edge.
He's
Athletic, or
committing soon, right? Is he committing?
yeah, he set a date, and that's huge because he had official visits set for later in the summer. Those aren't going to be attended because he's more than likely Irish. But just some really good recruiting updates. You, I mean, we talked about it off air again, but a couple weeks ago, I'd say a month or two ago, recruiting talks were down. Right, everybody was freaking out. What's happening? What's going on? Well, we were still implementing a staff at that point. Kind of hard. You pretty much have the guys you had on campus to recruit, but you didn't have the full staff, right? So it
Yeah.
wasn't easy. Not an easy turnaround when you win the or not when you make the national championship, right? The time is a lot more crunched down. So
Yeah, dude, and we like Dylan left. Chad left. We had another couple of recruiting people leave. Like we were just still trying to implement the staff. So how can the recruiting operation be all firing on all cylinders if we don't even have our foundation of our staff in place for 2025, 2026? So this was the whole learning curve. We hadn't been to the title in 12 years, like we didn't
yeah,
play that deep into the well, especially since the playoff now, but we we have never played that long into the next calendar year. So there was a learning curve there, but man, I mean, it's great for Freeman's experience. Now, if we go do it again or in a 2 or 3 years we get back to the title, well, he's been there before. He knows what to expect and he'll be able to handle it better. So, yeah, the recruiting will keep upticking, right? It'll get there. Like, could it be better? Did we think it would be better under Freeman as of right now? Sure. But the foundation is built, and now it's just a matter of going and getting these guys that are really going to make a difference. And
Mhm.
so far, like you said, from what we've heard, we're going to start seeing some splash recruits committing, I think.
Yeah. Well, I mentioned it in a couple videos ago. I said I think it was when everybody was freaking out and we are uploading more consistently. I said just give it time. Wait till some of these athletes get on the campus for visits and they see the trophies. The Sugar Bowl trophy, the Orange Bowl trophy. Yes, that's not the national championship trophy. They all know what it looks like, but those were trophies to lead to that game, right? Those are prominent things that these kids can look at and say, hey, if I go to the school, I got a chance to go win a national championship. They didn't
Yep.
do this year, didn't do it that year, but I could be a player that makes a difference to do it.
Right.
And that's I knew at some point that was going to be a big help for the recruiting. Just let those kids embrace the campus and all that stuff, but those trophies are a big part of it. And that shows it proves that you can go win those big games. It's Georgia, Penn State in the playoffs. Like
Well,
that's what's
those
cool to me about this 12-team playoff because you have better chances to win those games.
right. The trophies, the game changing plays. You're like, dude, we showed the nation and high school recruits a lot in terms of you can come and do these things at Notre Dame. There for a while, it kind of we just hadn't done it, right? We hadn't done it in the big bowl games. We hadn't won any of them. So eventually, you kind of have that stigma around you. But now we've proven you come here, we can do anything that any of these other high profile programs are doing. We can do it too. So, yeah, dude, I can't wait. I'm super pumped up to get up there to South Bend. Me and Connor will be at the game. We'll be up there for a good couple days. So we're fired up to be in there, see a spring game in Notre Dame Stadium. And dude, the season is we talked about it. We're about 5 months out. It's coming quick.
Yep. Just got to endure the what do they call it
Summer,
the dog the dog days of summer. It's
the
gonna
dog
be
days
a
of
hot one
summer.
here in Florida. It's gonna be a hot one here, but yeah, we're excited to get up there and check out the spring game. It's gonna be my first true game where I'm actually seeing players on the field for my first time. So
Yep.
excited to get up there and enjoy that.
Good stuff, man. Well, good. Always good hopping on. Glad we were able to, talk about some of the first spring impressions, recruiting updates, quarterback, of course. We're always going to get on that topic. It's one of those off seasons. We don't know who's going to be the starter. So that's the hottest topic out there. But always appreciate your time, dude. Thanks for hopping on.
Yeah, man. Well, we'll see you guys soon, and as always, go Irish.
Go Irish.